Miss live ആട്ടോ.
Ebita, you can start now.
Okay, ma'am. Everything in your life is a reflection of a choice you have made. If you want a different result, make a different choice. A pleasant morning to you all. Myself, Ebita Maria from first year BSc Psychology. Welcomes each of you to the 10th session of International Webinar Series, Psy-Hub, organized by the Postgraduate Department of Psychology in association with Internal Quality Assurance Cell and Christjodi Management. God is making things happen for us, even when we don't see it or feel. God is working on our prayers. A day without prayer is a day without blessing, and a life without prayer is a life without power. So, let me call Agnes Susan Thomas from first year BSc Psychology to direct us to our deepest purity. Welcome, Agnes.
As the deer panted for the waters, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit be. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee.
Thank you, Agnes. Each section of International Webinars I have been new learning experience for us. What we do today can improve all our tomorrows. May I welcome Mr. Sijo P. Jacob, Assistant Professor of Christjodi College of Management and Technology, to welcome the gap. Over to you, sir.
Am I audible, Beta?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. A very good morning to each and everyone who have joined in Psy-Hub session 10 over the YouTube and other devices, especially the Zoom platform. Most respected principal of KCMT and our inspiring force, very Reverend Father Joshi Chiram Guril, our beloved HOD and the inspiring woman behind all our endeavors, Dr. Angel Thomas, most respected Vice Principal, Dr. Wagis Anthony sir, IQSC coordinators, Sri Sushil sir, Dr. Anu madam, most respected guest of the day, Mrs. Sharon Steve. I'm acknowledging Dr. Shibu Dharmarajan from Bangkok, who's joining us from Bangkok, eminent psychologist, and most respected teachers and students and other stakeholders who have joined in this endeavor from the different domains. See, yesterday it has been heard that the Psy-Hub is nowadays getting as a brand name among the psychology academicians and other stakeholders. So we are very happy to learn that the Psy-Hub series is nowadays getting a talk among the psychology academicians and among the research community. So actually we have developed such a program as a platform to exchange the ideas and also for the interdisciplinary discussion and for the experience sharing. Moreover, the program was intended to have an international exposure for our student community. So many of our students have shared that. It has given a chance to hear internationally accredited academicians like Shirin Madam. So we hope that we can continue the Sci-Hub series throughout the year. We hope, if God permit us. Anyway, so with our inspiring Angel Madam's guidance, we hope that we would make it as a record after completion of the 12 or 30 programs of Sci-Hub session by the help of internationally accredited academicians. So let me get into my duty. I'm here to welcoming you all. First of all, as we know, our most respected principal, Reverend Father Joshi Chiramguri, who is an inspiring man behind all our endeavors. So I think he need much, you don't need much introduction. With all respect, I'm welcoming dear Father to Sci-Hub session 10. See, our Vice Principal is here, Dr. Varghese Anthony sir. It's also a guiding force behind all our programs. And moreover, our beloved HOD Angel Madam is here. I'm welcoming Angel Madam to also to this function. And let me remark and place my heartfelt welcome to Mrs. Sharon Steve from Australia, Sydney. As you can see over here, she's a very vibrant, young, smart academician and psychologist who has been in the field for last 10 years in the practical psychology, clinical psychology, experience sharing and problem solving and all. So this heading itself is explaining about her experience in this field. With all respect and love, we welcoming you, madam, to this session. So, dear participants, let me wind up. Welcoming you all once again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I request Arun Kise from first year BSc Psychology to introduce the resource first.
Good morning, one and all. It gives me immense pleasure and happiness to introduce today's speaker, Mrs. Shirin Steve. We are extremely proud that we got an eminent and right person to deliver the webinar on understanding trauma, including adverse childhood experiences and family and domestic violence. Mrs. Shirin is working as a consultant psychologist at Leppington Allied Health Centre, Sydney, Australia. She is a fully registered psychologist with NSW Psychologists Registration Board and Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency. She is also a member of Australian Psychological Society. She is well experienced and professional in this field of psychology. Christy Jyoti family is extremely proud to have you, ma'am, on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, let's move on to the much awaited session on the topic understanding trauma, including adverse childhood experience and family domestic violence. As we progress through the session, please share questions and doubts in the chat box. Also, do complete the feedback form provided at the end of the session. Also, everyone do check your mics are muted. Now, let me proudly call upon the resource person of today's session, Mrs. Shirin Steve, consultant psychologist. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much and very good morning. And I know this is not the right mask during the COVID times. So just taking off and trying to say, when clients come to me, I leave this mask at my door just to making sure and remind them we have to be our real self. So here is the real me. So very good morning, dear all. And I can see Joseph sir in the group too. So good afternoon, sir. So I'm trying to share the screen.
Everyone, please do check your mics are muted.
hope everyone can see my screen, yeah?
No, it is not visible right now. Share the screen.
Sorry, I have to admit I can't see the Zoom link, so I'm hoping everyone can see me. So this is me. I'm Shirin Steve. I'm a registered psychologist working in Leppington Allied Health Centre. I'm based in Sydney. I passed out 20 years ago, so I was just a student like any one of you. Now I'm a wife of a loving husband, my husband, dear Steve, and I'm mother of 3 beautiful boys, 15, 8, and 5 years old. So I want to start the session saying we learn together and we never stop learning from the time from our mother's womb, and we don't stop passing to our next generation. And see, the fun fact about it, learning is passed on to 3 generations, including good and bad, like that includes even fear and trauma. So hence, like, we choose wisely for our next generation. So I want to start with the exercise. So I want everyone to close your eyes for a second and say, who comes to your mind when I say love? So who will be the 5 people you'll be interested? Who will be the 5 people who you can go and talk to when you are not feeling the very best? Sorry about the glitches in between. I was under the impression it was on. Okay. So keep this exercise in your mind, because I'll be coming back to it later. So like, I want to speak like during the times of COVID, what do we really choose? Like, there is a lot of love messages going around. There's a lot of hate messages going around. All of this, it gives us fear. Like, we want to, as we listen to Joseph Serve, the urge is to run, or we stay and keep fighting. So what are the measures we need to keep fighting too? So just wanted to acknowledge, when politics, religion, and areas where we live divides us, when on the positive point, COVID-19 unites us even through pain. So we are in this together, and we'll survive this pandemic together. And I want to really pay heartfelt respects to all the heroes who's working on the field and who has passed. So this is another quick exercise, because I want to make sure like we come back and forth to this, because I'll explain why later on. So on a scale of 0 to 100, as you can see, where are you right now? So just pick a number, doesn't matter. So like, I'm giving an example too, like let's say when you were very, very anxious moment on a scale of 0 to 100, which number would have picked them, thinking of the incident? So trying to see how mentally healthy I am on a scale right now. What are the actions I have taken in the past 2 weeks to look after my mental health? What's in my toolbox? We all got one. What are the challenges I came across, like during these times? Like there could be cyberbullying, like being away from friends and family, kind of stuck at home, no games outdoors, no more eating out, which will be a big miss. More fights with parents and siblings because we can't get into each other's toes. What thoughts and feelings run through your body when you hear about the COVID-19? And you can't switch it off, because when you listen to the news all the time, it's that's the number. And how does your body respond? What number would you give from 0 to 100? So this one, I want to quickly run through it. So with Google around, everybody is checking on the Google and everything. So with this, study, I was trying to have a look into what's the evidence about trauma studies within India. But I have to say, from the list, I couldn't have much resources. But something that came really interesting to my mind is that prevalence of mental health issues, especially starting from childhood to adolescence, it's mostly seen in northern states of India than south. So, which is very interesting. I think more studies need to come forward in relation to that. So, I'm starting with a question. What's really happening? Like I know this pandemic of COVID is there, and even before that, we had a rise of mental illness, including suicide, chronic diseases of chronic pain, addictions, alcohol, drugs, all those addictive behaviors. I'm sure you have done, like webinars around that before. So I'm hoping from today, after the end of the session, today you will, like as a group together, will be more trauma informed, able to understand the real people underneath, not with the mask, without the mask. We are able to see each other. So what is trauma? So exposure can be one single incident or a series of incidents that is emotionally or physically life-threatening. It doesn't have to be life-threatening sometimes, but the person perceives as life-threatening, and that last like adverse effects, like very bad effects on us, as if it can affect our emotional well-being, our functional well-being, every way. So every one of us, each one of us are exposed to this trauma from the time we are from mother's womb till the day we die. So because pain is inevitable in life, and there is a lot of growth pain as we move forward too in life. So how the trauma impacts and shapes us. So what are the causes? So as you all know, there are physical, sexual, emotional abuse. Child neglect is one big one. And here in Australia, it's considered worse because the study shows that children die more from the neglect than the abuse. So which leads to another side of things where adverse childhood experiences. So I'll explain furthermore from the time between, from the mother's womb till the age of 10, let's say, at that age, what are the things we go through that shapes us, literally shapes us. So having a family with mental health or substance abuse disorders, violence in the community, including bullying and family or domestic violence, natural human-made disasters or forced displacement, like being separated from loved ones. And I know with the COVID, we get to this isolation. This morning we heard most likely military is getting involved to close the borders because people are not listening and taking isolation seriously. So, like it's getting tighter here. So poverty and discrimination. So adverse childhood experiences and trauma, it has no boundaries. And we are all in this together. And it's just that maybe we are not acknowledging who goes through it or may not paying much attention to it. So when we look into high-risk population, it's low-income communities. Maybe that's why the North Indian communities are seen, like there is a massive discrepancy with like low income and the high income. There is no middle income communities towards the north. So maybe that's why one of the reasons mental health issues are rising in northern states. Next is ethnic and racial minorities. And I thought, like, when I was a young student in India, I thought it was only an issue there. But I realized even here in Australia, like the issues are everywhere. It doesn't matter. Your skin color doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It's like the area where you live. Oh, you come from this side of Sydney, or you come from this side of Wollongong, or there is this which is in our head but not real, and other communities, people with disability, LGBT communities, women and girls. So we all have somebody, like there are women in this group, there are people who has mothers, sisters, like so that means it affects you as well. So how does the exposure affect the person? A list of things, which is obesity. Like, why obesity? When we go through stress, we tend to comfort it because this is the easy go. Like, what happens with the stress? We think, oh, I like something's going to happen. We tend to eat more, and then because of the obesity, we get the heart disease, cancer, lung disease, liver disease, that goes on. And hepatitis, they're like A, B, C, and most of, like all three of them are mostly blood-borne viruses. And it can be due to high sexual activity, or maybe being at unsafe places too. So autoimmune diseases, so rheumatism, or there are some list of autoimmune diseases, including fibromyalgia, sexually transmitted infections, and then mental health issues, as we listed and talked before. So what happens when people experience with trauma? Like, how do people deal with it? So a good number of times, like when we are under threat, we go look for an easy way out. We run. Because of that, so we pick up things that can be unhealthy. So some antidepressant medication is not unhealthy at all in the list over here. Being absent from work is another issue, or being absent from college or uni. Having depression is not out of choice. These things do happen. And we need to speak about suicide as well. So, so the studies shows that it's a good number of victims are gone through like many events, multiple events. And because of that, they don't know how to regulate their mood. So remember the scale we said from 0 to 100. So if we stay on that between 70 to 100 most of the time, you're always firing, you're firing, and the aggression will be very bad, and people get very destructive. Yes, so that, like, does that make sense? So when it comes to, like, I pick the, as an example, I hope in the group most of us must have watched Vijay's Master. It's a perfect example in that movie where the person have gone through very, very intense trauma, and Vijay Sethupathi, like he did a very good job in presenting it, but I have to say the violence was too intense. I might get a trauma just watching the movie. So, you know, that shows, that depicts a good, interesting way how he became a full-blown criminal. So in our jail system, justice system, I have many colleagues who works in the justice system, and when you speak to them, it's like they understand, all of them has a backstory. Like I have worked with people who have come out of jail and they are on the parole system. So they come to my practice and I get to see them, and they're not any different like you and me, you know. It's just that they've been to the jail because they got into trouble with the law. They got caught. And they were deeply in trouble with the law. They shouldn't have done what they have done, but they make poor choices. Why? Because remember that 100, they are there, and when they are there, the decision making isn't working. They don't have good way of problem solving, so they end up doing wrong stuff. So there is that saying called hurt people hurt. You know, that leads to our next topic, to the family and domestic violence as well. So what I'm trying to say is trauma is everywhere, and it is not really recognized. So what are the clinical symptoms of trauma? So exposure to traumatic event, it has to be direct or indirect. So what does it mean by direct? Like you experience as a first person. Indirect, it can be for example, I was one of the victims compensation client. It was, he was the father of the child who got abused. So that an indirect exposure. So intrusive symptoms, that's the list of flashbacks, nightmares, physiological reactions, being jumpy all the time. Negative changes in cognition, mood, all that, like, you know, you see that people go through this spiral, they spiral down. Alternations in arousal or activity level, like they get into that hypervigilance, hyperarousal, meaning like, you know, they're always checking, like, is somebody out the door or window, or with the noise, what's that noise? It's only a coconut, don't worry, it's not a bomb, you know. So that's kind of situation. So duration, like of trauma exposure. So acute stress disorder is diagnosed when the trauma event happens, and under the 3 months period, it's diagnosed as acute stress disorder. And after like 3 months time, they haven't recovered, it is considered as post-traumatic stress disorder. So I had to work with one case where one of the sister was visiting the pregnant sister and she delivered the baby. And poor thing went through massive shock herself, delivering baby by herself before the ambulance got there. So I was dealing with her acute stress disorder. So, you know, and she was able to, before she got into that PTSD state, we were able to work through the stuff, you know, issues and move forward. So functional significance, so you can't perform. Like even to make a cup of tea or like brushing your teeth, or everything becomes an effort. That self-care goes down. You're not able to socially engage yourself. You can't, like previously you could be able to like even play games, not even playing games interest you anymore. So it's like massive spiraling down. So I want to say something like late display or presentation I have seen in nonverbal children. Like 2 cases I can say. One of them was a child, he was only 3 years old, and her family house was broken into, and I'm seeing him when he's 9 years old, and he's having all these symptoms as we said about. And when we spoke about what was the worst part, it was very upsetting, at the same time a little funny for me. Like and I spoke to their parents, they thought it was funny too. Even the burglars took his piggy bank, the piggy bank, and for him that was very intense and too precious. It had all the treasures he had in it. So, that's why I said how we perceive it. For the child, it was very traumatic. So because of that incident, at the moment, even when the parents drive the car, he's looking out. Even when the parents are at home, he's always checking the window. So all those behaviors. And another case I worked where the abuse happened when the lady was 5 years old, but she's 45 and she started having the dreams about it. So it was a late display. And later, when we worked through the whole thing, she had it's like the dotted lines, and with our memory, it gives us fractions, like she had no memory about it before that. But all these dreams started coming when she was 45. She's happily married, everything's fine, everything's settled. And then she can't stop these reactions. It's all happening. So we try to work through this process. And then she realized who did what. And she was able to forgive the family member. And she was able to let go of it. And we worked through the process and she was fine. But that late display when she was safe, that sense of safety, when sometimes our mind plays that I can be safe enough to bring my baggage, boom, it goes. So sometimes it happens. So what are the different types of trauma? So as we said, a traumatic experience, like an incident happens. The first way is natural recovery response. And I truly believe we are all built in a way to heal naturally. So that's physical health and mental health too. So, and a good number of times, if it's very mild to moderate symptoms of any disorder, we tend to bounce back naturally. But if the problem hasn't gone, the situation hasn't changed, or your way of processing about it, the trauma persists, then we go through that second part where, the recovery, like the symptoms persist and, it takes two phases again. Some phase where there is no treatment for trauma, or some people take take help for trauma and get through that. So what happens? I think this, I will be repeating what Joseph sir said before. But I think I have to touch base this one because this is very important, what happens in our brain. So my way of explaining to my clients, and Joseph said already about the thinking brain and the emotional brain. So I'm coming to that. We all need the prefrontal cortex part, like this part. And I agree with all the teachers in the group that you want all your students to have that prefrontal cortex working to its fullest, so the your students can learn everything like a sponge, isn't it, teachers? I'm sure you agree with me, because this is the seat of all higher order thinking, all the executive functions, your decision making, your problem solving, your seat of self-control. It is here. Believe it or not, it is here. That's why you're like, I know this is how I need to do it, but don't know what to do when you come into a situation. Even when you are a psychologist or a clinical psychologist, a doctor in the field, Miss Angel, yes, when we all go through trauma. So, this part of the brain literally shuts down. It's like a locked out room. And who is in charge? The emotional brain is in charge. So what happens there? So especially the 3-second rule, I say to my clients, the first 3 seconds, that's why when people are angry, they are taught to count from 1 to 10 or 20. So you can buy that 3 seconds because, okay, so I'm using my hand. This is already been explained by I learned it from other specialists in the field, using the hand to explain the brain. So this is the brain stem. This is the emotional brain, and this is the thinking brain here. So see, this is the smart brain, the thinking brain, and it is literally sitting on top of your emotional brain. So when the message of a trigger comes, where does it go first? Hippocampus, amygdala, they are in charge, like no information go past without their permission. They decide, and that 3 seconds, if you react before that first 3 seconds, gone. Like you might make a emotional decision. So, okay. I don't know whether I lose you on this or you will be on this with me. Until the age of 25 years, the prefrontal cortex is not fully grown. So that means half the time when you get into trouble with your teachers, with your family, you cannot be blamed because half the time this is not even working there properly. Am I making sense? So, so like for a fully grown adult brain, this part is fully functional. But under 25, this is not fully functional. You're still learning. You are still in the process. So, so the emotional brain is in control. And if it's going on 100 and, the thinking brain can't sit still, like it can't be functioning. So it is literally blocked out. So one way of I try to explain is that the prefrontal cortex, when we are able to give that 3-second rule, able to breathe in, breathe out, and make by that time, and if we can think through our thinking brain, we are able to put brakes to whatever situation or trigger we have in front of us. So we can make a better choice. But good number of times, as Joseph said, it goes to the low road, and which is the emotional brain, where we full on accelerate in the car. We go speed up, we are fully fired up. So we are going on a 90 and it's like, I can't deal with this. And it's like everything becomes a full on disaster. So I explained that. So different types of trauma. So from low exposure to the high exposure. So like when we come to know that somebody we know have passed, it is very disheartening. We miss the person. So going up to the next level, safe by chance. So people go through a lot of guilt. So I have 2 cases where I can say the group of boys went to for swimming, and there was a very high current and 2 kids passed, and the other children who went with them, they live with that guilt. Even though they survived by chance, they live by guilt. There was a boat accident here. There were 6 friends, 1 father and child passed, and the others, they are alive, but they carry that pain of guilt, of survival. So the duration of exposure, how long were you in there for? Sometimes the absence of control. One of my clients, she was stuck in the lift and the lift went out of control and fell down. So that absence of control, you have no choice but to sit tight and don't know what's going to happen. Risk of injury, how bad was the injury? I work with the workers' compensation clients. So I see a lot of clients who have lost parts of their body, and they go through, even if it can be little part of their finger, or sometimes it can be a nerve that doesn't help these fingers move. It's massive impact on them. So when they go and see the same machine, the flashbacks doesn't stop, and they go through all that. How life-threatening was the situation. So sometimes our mind can't handle the pain, so it goes into that panic, full-on panic attack or panic mode with the anxiety responses. Or sometimes people go through dissociation. It's like dream-like state. They're there, but not there. It's like they go into that autopilot, and brain literally flips the switch, and they know this is all happening. I worked with a student. She was in that dreams-like state for 3 days. She went to school, did whatever she needs to do, but nothing feels real. because of something happened and the trauma. So once we work through the trauma, that all passed and it went away. So it is one way of, like, let's say it's a defense mechanism of our mind to, as a part of survival. So, and then high exposure, seeing death, I have twice myself. And when I was a student, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't like, so I think that's where the interest, many interest comes in the field because of our personal experiences too. And like it was, I was a student, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I witnessed it. You come home, speak about it, maybe cry a bit about it, and nobody talks about it ever, because we are good in one thing, pushing everything under the carpet, right? So nobody talks about it and it's dusted. No, it's done. Nobody talks because it brings up what? Pain. So we avoid. But that's not good. Suppressing pain is not good. So what are, like, when we look at the different types of like PTSD, there is normal stress response. When there is a trauma, like when a tiger comes to jump in front of you, obviously you're going to run. You're not going to stay and fight. No, you can't. So like there is that normal response. Then adverse childhood experiences. So that part, why is it so intense and so bad, is that it's that extreme helplessness. They can't break through the situation. They have no choice. They are stuck. They're relying on the caregivers and the people around them. So I think we kind of covered that, almost all of it. And I just wanted to say, there is a list. There's a face, as you can see over here, like from going up. There is vicarious trauma, which I wanted to mention as well. Vicarious trauma or compassion, like compassion fatigue. I have been through it twice or even more maybe, because you keep listening to people's stories. What happens? Your brain thinks that is my pain. So the brain like kind of repeat whatever the story has gone through, and it works through. Why? Another part. Because when, like, listen to a conversation you had with your friend, and the friend said about the whole situation, did you know this happened, good or bad, doesn't matter. So even if you haven't been there, you don't know the people, we still imagine everything. We are visual people. So 95% of what we listen, we visualize, and it becomes part of our memory. So with all the psychologists and the future psychologists, like 30 to 40 hours of listening to clients, it can happen to police. I really like the movie. I forgot the name of the movie, Joseph. That was a very nice movie depicting vicarious trauma of a policeman, and Jojo did a very good job. I'm very happy to watch that movie though. Like, it depicts vicarious trauma so well. As a policeman, how he experienced. Teachers, nurses, doctors, none of us in the caring professions, like first-hand responders, like we all go through that. Then the other part is historical trauma, like big events happening. Holocaust is a big one. I'm not sure many of you are even aware about it. So maybe say for India, one of the major ones where being in like during Indira Gandhi time, like they put what do you say, like they had this tight isolation and stuff like that, and a lot of chaos happened because of it, and still people recovering from that trauma if you talked about the older generations. So there are a few events that can be affecting the whole community as such. And well, with the historical trauma, COVID-19 will not be forgotten, because in 40 years time, they'll be saying there was a massive historical trauma with COVID-19 that was bad. The kids will hoping they will say, listen, wow, how they survived. We will be a part of history there. So what are the changes that happens to a brain? Yeah. This one, like on the left side, that's the healthy one, and the right side is the abused brain. So you can see how the parts of the brain, it's not fully functioning within a PET scan. So, so this is a child who was orphaned, and they did the study, and a lot of emotional and cognitive problems. And one of the major ones with the adverse childhood experiences is that their brain is in a survival mode, constant survival mode, with your emotional brain up and playing and running constantly on this. Because of that, this part where the seat of all good stuff should come, they can't learn, they can't fix problems, they can't concentrate, they have problem with the memory. So all this happens, and can you imagine that happening all through that childhood times? It's, not going to help. So, childhood experiences is very powerful determinant. And, I keep saying this. So 90% of life as an adult, it's already been decided by 10 years old. So, well, we all passed that. So does that mean that you can go home and fight with your parents? No. So it is about identifying. It's not about blame, remember. We are loving people, not hating people. So that's a hate choice, not a love choice. So what we can do for the future, one day you guys will be parents too. And, already some of us in the group are parents. So we can try our best to make it special for our loved ones. That's it. So we're going again with the trauma and the brain. So there is a part with the trauma brain where, so in the regulation, if you are able to survive, we regulate better, the emotional and social emotional side gets better, and the cognitive functions get better. But, you can see it's the other way around in the trauma brain. So that's why it doesn't function as it should. So that's why kids can't learn if they have massive problems happening at home. And then when it comes to the results, the parents are like, how come you didn't get the good marks we were hoping for? They just can't do it. So we need to make sure they have, better learning experience. Like people, like children, explorative when they have safe zone, safe setting, so they explore. But how come if they are in that full-on survival mode, will they? No, they don't. They're always looking for an exit to get out, a place to hide. There is a big difference, right? So it's the same. So I really love this Beacon House. I use a lot of their resources for my therapy sessions. So here we go again. So developmental trauma, what happens? What are the results because of that? So as you can see, the orange part, it's like I'm using two fingers. This many part of the brain is affected, and this trauma situation occurred, and they got the right help, and they recover, they bounce back, then they're back to normal self. But let's say, as we said before, if the help didn't come, what happens? Like it gets bigger into that greener zone, and then comes to the blue zone. So what happens as adults, and if your developmental trauma has not been addressed, a lot of mental health issues comes as a result. I hope that makes sense. That's why a lot of self-esteem issues, like a lot of identity issues, a lot of information processing, because that information is given out to everyone, but the person takes it extremely bad way and very personal because they're not processing it properly. So again, this is more of how can we help regulate a child. So I wanted to really add another picture in there where a child is like a ball of fire, and mom try to hold the child, and it becomes like the child becomes calm and looks more like a child later on. I didn't get a chance to add in there. So this is another 3 R's: regulate, relate, reason. So, like you try to regulate. Eye-to-eye contact is very important. So that's why, well, social isolation. We are not able to have any eye-to-eye contact with the clients. So we're doing telehealth. So at the same time, I feel like if the person are able to connect with the person, it still works. This is still working, right? The webinar is a success. I heard right beginning of the session. Why? Because we are able to connect. So when we connect, we are able to regulate ourselves better. When we relate, you know, and when we are able to reason and process it better, we are able to manage it better. So Dr. Bruce Perry says, you know, the key to all is human love. So, and this is one of my favorite resource I use within the session. So as you can see, it's a red, amber, green, red, yellow, green, like a traffic light. Yes, I don't know whether you can see it. Yeah, traffic light. Yes, so it's the same. We're going through the same thing. What happens? We said about, you know, when we are at our calm, when we are at our green, we do our best. So, well, there is a trigger. We go into that fight or flight mode. What happens? Remember, we said the accelerator go down and we are going firing up again. We get into that. When we stay in that fight or flight for way too long, meaning staying between the scale of, remember that 70 to 90 scale, we fire up again to that freeze response. So people tend to shut down or feeling that shame or like feeling trapped or like that depression cycle. It's like it's forever going around, you know, like it's like when it comes to PTSD, people turn into drugs or alcohol or gambling, and then it becomes a trigger and the cycle keeps going on. It's like unable to break out or reverse the cycle. So our adverse childhood experiences, you know, like Bessel, he's a well-known clinician in the field. He says, you know, this can be majority of the trouble can be prevented, including suicide, heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, which is causing early death. Yes. So key again. So as I said again, does this mean we go back and fight with our parents? No. What we are trying to do, instead of blame, we try to understand. So we're trying to see what's happening with me because of from the age, like for me, I'm 40. So from 0 to 40, like what has happened? You know, what's going on? What can I do? So able to understand, like we are not trying to judge or blame self or others. Instead, we are trying to choose to be more compassionate and being lovable. So here, with the picture, with the empathy, we need to be empathizing with us and others. If no empathy, and remember, when the emotional brain is in charge, there is no empathy at all. So we need to learn to calm that down, give that 3-second rule. Remember, breathe ourselves, find our calm, and you know, we are able to get to our thinking brain, and then we are able to empathize with ourselves and our friends and our family. So it's like when you plan something, if something goes wrong, instead of blaming my brother, he picked up and checked whether the root was growing or not, that's why it went bad. No, we try to do what can be done, and instead of arguing, instead of trying to reasoning or blaming, we choose to love and make the situation better. So keep going on this because I don't want anybody to go home and fight with your parents. So it's not what's wrong with you, not even being like self-judgment, self-blame, self-shame, self-punishment. Why I keep saying that? Majority of my sessions, I'm dealing with this, with the clients. Very such, like, who is the biggest critic of ourselves? Ourselves, you know? Nobody else. It's not the teachers, it's not the parents, but us. We form very bad judgment about us. We form very bad self-blame because of me. Shame, we put that on us, and we think because of all that, I deserve to be punished. That happens even in domestic violence, where they have this thinking, like it's a faulty thinking. I deserve to be punished. So we are not choosing that, but the other end, we are going to do this. So we are going to learning to be more empathetic and compassionate towards ourselves, understand ourselves, see us without the mask, nurture ourselves, and we are going to reverse the cycle through healing and recovery. So we can't take the topic without domestic violence, right? This is one big problem. So I love the saying, we kiss. I have to say, with all these pop-ups in between, I can't see my, my screen properly. So we kiss our children, not for them to kiss us back. We kiss them so they can kiss their children. What we're trying to say is role modeling. I really love that quote. And I saw that somewhere on the Facebook from my friends posting, but I thought, that is amazing. Beautiful thought. It's role playing. So what happens in our family due to all that adverse childhood experiences and pent up anger, lot of all that negative feelings we have, how do we react to each other at home? So it's not that everybody end up doing all this, but domestic violence, it's a pattern or a cycle or abusive or controlling behavior. It can be like, it has to be, and like, there is a honeymoon period, there is a tension building up, and then a big blow of an event. It can be of anything from what we are saying here: physical, emotional, psychological, social, financial, sexual, even the neglect, stalking, which can be physically stalking someone or electronically checking on other person, intimidation, fear provoking, or harassment. So what happens to the victim is that they feel very unsafe, scared, very uncomfortable, and feeling. So the thing is, when it comes to a clinical setting, you see the person, they say, I've got very bad anxiety. But they're not going to say, I have got a domestic violence problem. No, they present usually with the anxiety problem. So when it comes to making the choices of right treatment and making that diagnosis is very important, because if somebody is coming to the person saying, I've been bullied, bullying is no way okay. It is a real threat. So if it happens at school, uni, any community, like, or even at home, it is not okay. That's a list of things we said. It is not okay in any means. And, so what happens with the brain? It doesn't grow. It's like the plant, remember? We nurture it, it grows. But we keep bullying it, it doesn't grow. And I absolutely love a video that came up. I think it was study with the Coca-Cola company, which they did in the Middle East. They had two identical plants, and they did it at school. So one side, the plant, they wrote saying, say all the nice things possible. You have to say very nurturing things possible to the plant. And the other plant, they wrote the message saying, say all the bad things possible to the plant. Oh, look at your leaf. It's looking very bad. It has very bad patterns. Oh my goodness. It is not even opening properly, things like that. So all the negative things. What do you think that happened after a couple of weeks? They gave water properly. The light was proper. The positioning of the plant was proper. But the one who received all that negativity, all the bullying, that plant ended up withering and dying, where the other one thrived. So if a plant can do that, what happens to a person with big, complex brain like us? Yes? So I didn't, that was a mind-blowing study. And And I think with that, it was eye-opening for the children. It was a part of bullying awareness program, and it was a big success. So, so when it comes to anxiety related to bullying behavior, the threat is real. Domestic violence, the threat is real. So the anxiety, it's only a reaction for the real problem. So I just wanted to say, with the domestic violence, we keep hearing more and more and more and more deaths related to the domestic violence. And here in Australia too, they have a big funding going for domestic violence, and still things happen. People die because they fail to ask for help, or maybe there is not enough help available. And people get, especially coming from an Indian background and being there, like understanding that even when people turn for help, they are turned away. They are being blamed again, and they feel put for shame again. So it is like they have no real help and no real help. Like if something happens, like in a recent case, what we heard in Kottayam, which was very, very disheartening. And you will hear all the, big fuss about it until the next something happens. So it is very important to identify this is a pattern of domestic violence. And a good number of times, it starts from the age of women. Majority of them think like, I can fix this person, I can take care of this, but they don't realize they're putting themselves into danger. So what happens, like with the anger management therapy, can it help the victim to get out of it? Not really. Not just that alone, because it doesn't hold the person responsible. And a majority of times the victim gets blamed because she did it. We heard the interviews from both ends. It was like, oh, she did it, she did that. It's always the blame. There is no, it's not getting into the root cause or the root suppressed feelings, what's underneath. It's not never addressed. So what happens, people say, oh, let's send them to a couples therapy, they will be fine. Can we do that? No. Why? If the person speaks up about what's happening at home and come back home, do you think the person will be alive? She will be punished, or he will be punished for speaking up. So it's about knowing the pattern, knowing how to treat each other, like healthy or unhealthy. So every friendship, like on a scale of 0 to 100, 0 meaning very unhealthy relationship, from a 100 meaning a healthy relationship, where does it stand? We need to go through that. So if anyone, is going through domestic violence, help them to understand what's going on. And sometimes just being a listening ear can help, because we can't tell them, we can't be judgmental and say, hey, get out of there. No, because a good number of times in domestic violence, especially here, people are killed when they leave, because they're so possessive, and there is it's about that control behavior, and they can't control them anymore, and they get killed because of that. So you need to have a safety plan in place. You work with a professional, reach out with trusted people. You can't just go and tell everyone about it. No, trusted people, and work through this, and best to get out of it, because if you don't, I have seen a picture where the boy is getting, smacked from the dad, and the boy grows and becoming that man again, because this cycle of domestic violence keeps happening, and the trauma continues with that. I'm hoping that makes sense. So I'm going back to, so when I speak about this, I need to be very careful. So recently I did a video with my group of friends, and one of the friends called and said, "Oh, Sharon, my wife is doing all of that." I know he was joking, but she's doing all of that and I'm the one suffering. And the wife calls and say, "Oh, Sharon, you have no idea." So you hear both sides of the story. Like, no relationship is perfect. It's that perfect moment that matters. So in a married relationship or like committed relationship, first 5 years matters. The first is the worst, you tell me. The first year can be very bad because like two individuals from two different families coming together and there is that honeymoon period, and then the real personalities come out, and you come with a baggage of unaddressed emotions and traumas and feelings and working through them as a team. It's not easy. And then, the first 5 years really does matter. 2 years after that, well, you passed it, most likely you can stick together. 5 years, you kind of learn this works with this person or this doesn't work with this person. So the most important part is trust and respect. There is no replacing that. It's like salt and sugar. If you don't have that, that's gone, So when we have trust with both partners, like, it maximizes the relationship. There is a lot of good qualities. Like even when people are in physical pain and you have a good partner, you don't feel the pain as much. But let's say on the other hand, if you are in a very unhealthy relationship and you can give only a score of 15, the pain goes very bad. And, you experience like it magnifies the pain. So it's not it's not healthy at all or in many ways. So what's the key? So for 5-1, this is Gottman is he's a genius in this field. So he suggests 5:1. So 5 positive interactions equals 1 negative interaction in a healthy communication. That's the way to go. If it's the other way around, so 5 negative interactions and only one positive interaction, it's not going to work. Even if it's with a friend or with a partner or with your wife or husband. So it's very important. And there is magic in love. And the majority of the movies we watch, it's all about love stories, right? And there is this magic. There is the calm, the trust, and the commitment. And once it's there, life is beautiful. So it's about identifying which is which and working through this. And I'm saying it again, domestic violence, it's not okay. Even if it's not it's not okay in any means. Unless we break the cycle of violence, the trauma wouldn't stop. So this is a very interesting resource I came across. And, we talk about fight, flight, freeze response, and there is something called fawn as well. So already, I think some of the things you already is aware about, and I'm just trying to focus here on that inner critic and outer critic, and that what happens with the personalities when it comes. And when it comes to domestic violence, a good number of them are narcissistic. It's more, I am okay, but you're not. When you have that very bad attitude and you're always in that fighting zone, what happens? The other person is going to suffer. So what happens when the person who is passive, having the attitude, I am not okay because I am to blame. I deserve the pain. So, when they have that attitude, they're always on the run, not sure how to deal with the things. And some people live very numb in a freeze response. Remember we said? So being that outer critic, I am okay, but you're not, but I know I can't do anything about it. I put my hands up, I can't deal with it, I live now. Then the other part is, I am not okay, you're not okay, but we try your best, like being that doormat, being the slave. This is my life, I live with it, I continue. So these are not good presentations. So as Joseph sir said last time, we work on assertiveness, where the attitude goes, I am okay and you are okay. So we able to trust each other, we able to respect each other, right? So this is more page for the organization or a community. What can we do to take care of trauma? So being more trauma informed, able to realize, recognize, respond, and resist re-traumatization, preventing it, more of prevention. So as a big organization, this is the aim and this is the way to go. So what are the 6 key principles of trauma-informed approach? Providing safety, like trustworthiness and being open and transparent, like see-through glass. Having that peer support. There are times when people talk about it, they're not hoping for, like as I said, the listening ear, you know? So just listen, be there. And remember, people regulate better with the eye contact, the touch, and the time you provide. So collaboration and mutuality, empowerment, voice. Remember, we studied about the resilience, and it's about that empowerment again, working, you know, teaching the person, like challenging all that negative beliefs about themselves and all that. The cultural and historical and gender side of things too. So our key response. So when the trigger happens, a non-trauma informed response. So somebody comes and say, hey, did you know this happened? And I'm very upset about it. And the person looks and says, yeah, whatever. What happens? On top of the trauma and the pain, it becomes a new pain on board where, oh my God, I can't imagine that person didn't care for me. Half the time, people carry the trauma, people who undergoes trauma carry that extra pain. They don't care, you know? And well, when we are more informed, the trigger happens, the trauma-informed response. Like, so because we are more trauma-informed, you give all these responses. What happens for the person who comes to you, it becomes a greater chance of positive outcome. So, a high dose of adversity is when people live with it with more fear than hope. Do you think in the picture, is there any hope for those 2 people? Don't think so. So, you know, it's talking more about that resilient side of things. So how can we prevent adversity or buffering that adversity, or how can we foster resilience, is when people live with more hope than fear. So especially during these times of COVID-19 too, like it is very hard to have that high hopes too, but at the same time, if we don't have hope at all, and it's mostly we live in that emotional brain and in that fear, and hope comes that thinking brain, like it makes it worse. So it's better to choose that hope than fear. So, well, our natural response is to run. At the same time, having that attitude of more hope helps. So what do we learn with the people who has been through trauma? That, like, you know, that's not the end. Like recovery and healing, it's possible. Like it is possible. As long as there is like right people, right environment, you know, like when you get the right help. And each person is unique. So, you know, like there was an example of a world war where 2 brothers, identical twins, went for war. One came with PTSD, the other one was fine. They said it was because the other person was more resilient personality. And as we learned, resilience is not natural. We like assertiveness, as Joseph said, so too, like it is through practice, it's everyday practice, it becomes your personality. So, you know, we go through the same event, but people have different response. So that trauma informed is a way of being in the world, like, you know, being aware. Yes, this has happened. Like, you know, the more you hear about the Holocaust and people are talking about it, how I survived, you know, that's a great story. How did they survive? Like they lived in fear every day. They lived in, like they knew death was coming on their way, but they kept going with the hope that one day they will come out of the other end. you know. And one person I was listening to, he said, I even loved the people, learned to love the people who did all that. I didn't say they were doing right, they were doing wrong, but I learned that because of what has happened, I have become a person even better, without pain. Like, you know, without pain and suffering, we can't grow better, you know, we become more resilient. So it's another attitude like he developed because of the hardships. So, you know, like us and them attitude, it is very sad when it happens. It is when we say it is a shared experience. Oh, this is COVID is so bad in India. So, oh, you know, people they are having it, we are okay here. That's that us and them attitude doesn't help. So every time when we have that divided mind, it is not going to help in any situation. So if it's like, how do I say, the mood is very contagious. So let's say everybody in the classroom, 20 of them are having very happy mood and come to the class, and one person walk in and, you know, something happened. They fell over when they were running for the bus and they missed the bus, and they're walking covered with the mud. And others will feel and empathize for the person and sit with the person, the mood change. And if the person is crying, obviously it's going to change our mood. So I always say to my clients, the mood is very contagious. So when you choose and stick around with, you know, people, like after you're listening to someone with a very heavy-hearted person, you walk away, you will feel that heaviness in your heart too, because you empathize. Your brain takes that memory on board, so it becomes contagious. And I really love that one of the videos they created about the ripple with the smile, which was beautiful, where, you know, one person smile and how it carries it through everyone, where it starts the ripple with that moment, with, you know, that joy. It was sharing the mood. It is contagious. Like we yawn, it is contagious. So like with that, when we have that resilience and recovery gets better, when we have that unity in our thinking. So trauma, yes, it really does leave a scar, but we make those scars into stars if we work through that trauma. So, you know, can trauma always be fixed? People try to do that all the time. I have to say, there are times you think, yes, we work through this and put it away, and before you know it, the demons are back, you know, with the trauma, with the it won't take much, you know, one little trigger, and you didn't even know like that could trigger you, and your body and mind is reacting. You know, even when that happens, we go through the process again. It can be held, heard, and loved. So how does the healing happen? I know you have studied this already, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I always say, if it starts from the basic physiological safety, you know, that, you know, we go through that self-actualization. So we start with when it comes to therapy, when healing, it's starting from the basics. You work through the basics and then we work the way up usually. So I'm leaving some of the slides in there just to as a resource for you all. So even later down the track, if you want to have a look at it, it will be a good one. So just saying, bad dietary habits can lead to bad mental health. So good food, good mood. Why? Our tummy is a second brain. Did you know that? Like, it was a breaking news for me, because like our microbes in the tummy results in a lot of you know, a lot of changes within us. So in every culture, there is some fermented food. For us, idli dosa is one of the fermented food. Palapam is one. So like a yogurt is fermented food across the cultures, you know. So all that fermented kimchi, they say, like a pickle, you know, these are fermented foods, which is good for the microbes. So when you eat well, you learn well. So let's say you come to the class without eating anything or drinking anything, what happens? You can't learn. Your brain can't function. We need water for the brain to get going. And sleep is the key. Like I keep, emphasizing on the sleep, because, the key to mental health is sleep. There is no replacing that, and there is no fixing mental health without the sleep. It's just as that. So why? We need that 6 cycles of REM sleep. So when we sleep, it's like we have the administration people come through the door, cleaners come through the door, and they tidy up the place. And but let's say your sleep is not the best, you're waking up 5 to 6 times at night, they have to leave the place and come back when you sleep, so they can continue your, putting everything away nice and tidy, and, you can start fresh next morning. So one of the key reasons with the anxiety and worries, like you can't take them to bed. It gets way too crowded. So like you need to have a good bedtime routine to help you to have a good night's sleep. So I'm skipping through a few things too. So, well, our personalities, it doesn't matter, extrovert or introvert, you're loud or shy, you do matter. So like, we need to have that vibrant, like we are who we are because of our past, because of our genes, because of our parents, forefathers, where we came from. That's who we are. And, that, these things do affect like how we tackle mental, like when we have some unmet needs, from the past, like we don't regulate the best. So like body pain, anxiety can be triggered with any event like that. So, like watching like, so as like communication styles with the passive, aggressive, assertive, remember, we need to be on our thinking brain to be assertive. And there are times, like I remember, I think you already have classes about boundaries. So there are times when you need to say no, it's a no, a simple no. Can I do it or no? So, and I always say, especially with my boys, I keep telling them too, that it takes a very brave person to ask for help. Because like we think, I know, I can deal with it. And we keep going. And I like to say a story about the frog. I hope you're all not sleeping yet. So there is a frog. There's an analogy about frog in the hot pot. So the frog happened to jump into the hot pot, and it was okay in the beginning. And then the heat started getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the frog thought, oh, it's okay. I can deal with it. I can deal with it. I can deal with it. But towards the end, it was a very bad story. The frog died. So the story is, who killed the frog? Was it the hot water, or was it the poor judgment of the frog not to come out when it should have come out, like the poor judgment, the problem solving side of it? So asking help at the right time is the key. So be brave, face your fear. So with the anxiety, like it's very easy to say face your fear and embrace your fear. And we watch motivating movies where they embrace their fear, but like the urge is to run, but you stay and fight. When you do that little thing, so when you do that, like let's say, write down the 5 things that you put away always, you're able to stop and do it little by little. Eventually it gets easier. So it was not too bad. You did 3 things out of the 5 this week. Next week, you'll be able to do 5 out of 5 from your list. So because I'm talking to younger generation too, self-harm is a major big issue with our across board. So I just want to acknowledge about the self-harm and young people, and especially boys with highly educated, like highly intelligent boys, they are at extreme high risk too. So they make sure it's a foolproof and they don't escape from it. So that's the sad part. So like always reach out, ask for help. And we have I think because of the COVID situation too, the censor board is not as working as before, I think. So the extreme violent movies are coming now, so which is affecting a lot of kids as well. So I'm just skipping through stuff. So social support, I know with the COVID stuff with happening around, like we don't have much like as you used to see your friends and family before, you can't do that anymore. So well, you still got your family at home. Make sure you give enough hugs, because well, there's an easy fix that releases plenty of oxytocin. It helps us heal and stay connected and deepen our bonds. And what do you think is the worst cause of mental health issues around the globe? Loneliness, which is very sad. We are surrounded with so many people, but everybody feels so lonely inside. And which if like in a situation where husband and wife, one of the partner passes away, and this is something I learned after my dad passing away, something I learned trying to understand my mom. I learned it too, that where their body goes into massive shock response, where they it's like one environment of bacteria, we're covered in bacteria, we're never alone, from head to toe. So many, like 37 trillion bacteria we're covered in. So we were sharing that kind of bacteria with each other, and that's gone. So our body goes into massive shock response and leading into deeper grief, which you get to see within the sessions as well. And it takes some time to recover and learn that this is not coming back. And for therapy, what I mean is, do you have cats? Do you have dogs? Do you have birds at home? All of that. Animals really help when it comes to, fixing. They are a part of our social needs as well. So they have better oxytocin themselves, and we have better oxytocin themselves, and it helps each other. So next part is the spiritual side of things. I just wanted to say that in my therapy sessions, I have seen one of the cases really, really hard, like over the years of abuse. And I worked with her. It was not easy at all. And there are times she said, I know when I come to you, I know you are listening. But when I'm home and I'm waiting to see you for next 3 weeks, I don't have anybody to listen. And then it was very heartbreaking to hear that too. So, she has this broken spirit in herself. So there was a skill of like teaching her how to reconnect to something bigger. We heal from watching a tree moving outside the window, like our nature heals. Like there is something beyond. So, I explained to her, speak your heart out. Even when, you see that there is nobody there, just sit there, speak your heart out. Make sure you feel that you're listened to, and then you'll feel the healing happen. And I have to say that was a miracle work. Like, she had a very fast recovery within the sessions, and she became like totally different personality from what I saw from the first time. So, what is your spiritual self-care? Is it people? Is it animals? Is it going places? Is it, it can be anything. It can be music. It can be nature. You need to stay and improvise, like with the meditation. What feeds your soul? Is it music, art, nature? Go with it. So instead of going into that autopilot, we can, like with mindfulness, we can improvise. I wanted to say something in between as well. I learned that the new study that explains mindfulness, if you practice every day, 12 to 20 minutes every day, it improves your emotional brain better. Like the middle part of the brain, they see the science, the study shows that it starts to grow better. So two things, exercise and mindfulness has, great benefits. And the people in the group who, including myself, who have reached kind of halfway through our lives, our brain starts to deplete. And unless we work on our mindfulness and exercise skills, we might invite early dementia. So we can stop that by practicing being mindful. Like that could be even picking a rose from your garden, or maybe just, watching a bird fly, or that's being in the moment and being present. And I cannot finish my sessions without talking about the importance of morning sun, because morning sun has lots of benefits. And if we are hoping to fix our sleep, we need the morning sun, because it can fix our melatonin cycle, which is the body clock. So the morning sun, the rising sun. So that's why in our culture, there is in yoga, we have the Surya Namaskar and all that. Why? Our yogis, it's amazing when the science comes up with all these results, and it's like, oh my goodness, it was there forever in our culture, and now they say it is very important. So for some reason, melatonin, the free melatonin, which is available in the morning sun, cooked through our eyes, soothes our nerves, calms our nerves, so we can sleep better at night. How beautiful is that? So, they say 20 to 30 minutes of morning sun exposure. So sometimes with our extremely depressed clients, I ask them, if you can please take your cup of coffee or breakfast, just sit outside and enjoy that morning sun. You will see the difference. The afternoon sun has the vitamin D in it, and usually it's absorbed through the skin. So if you're fully covered, we don't get vitamin D. And there is in India, it's not a big issue, I think, but in Australia, because of the winter season we have, and most of us this is winter here now, so we are we are always mostly indoors, and we are missing the sun. And a good number of them have very bad fatigue because they lack vitamin D. And most of us have to have extra vitamin D to keep us going. Otherwise, you find it very hard to function every day. And on top of that's why, when people come to us for assessment, we check all that too. How is your blood? Have you done your blood check recently? How is your vitamin D? Is that all good? Because sometimes they say, oh, I'm so depressed, I don't have any motivation, I can't do it. But the problem is in vitamin D, they're not having depression. So, those are the things, because assessment is very important. So see, this is free, available where you are, and even COVID can't stop the sunlight. So there is no excuse. So get out there with your cup of tea or coffee, wake up that little half an hour early, go sit in the sun or go for a walk, enjoy that nature time, 20 minutes every day. It is, a healer. Then positive self-talk. What do I tell myself? So no doubt, that bossy critical self, we said that we generate a lot of automatic negative thinking, and that automatic negative thinking is coming from that emotional brain. All that negativity, shame, guilt, all that, it just doesn't stop. So the balance is when you have one automatic negative thinking, if you're able to feed it with two positive, energizing thoughts, which usually should come from that thinking brain, then it's a balance. Oh, well, here is the catch. If you're having a very bad day and you having 20,754 negative thoughts that day, are you able to double it and replace it with the positive energizing thoughts? It's a catch, right? So, well, at least you start with one. You like anything that inspires you, write it down somewhere you can see every day. Any motivational stuff. I think this is something I practiced from the time I was at school. I'm not sure. This is a habit I picked up, and I have to say, I still continue, and I'm very proud about it. I still write down things on my diary. Sometimes it can be a Bible verse, or sometimes it can be, so one of those resources I see from the Facebook, or can be anything. Sometimes it can be something you hear from your friend, but if it catches me, I write it down, and that will inspire me for the day, or, carry you through. So it is very important that you be kind to yourself. And how can you expect others to be kind to you when you can't even kind to be yourself, right? So make sure you have that plenty of positive self-talk going. So what you tell yourself is very important, because whatever you tell yourself, our brain believes it. So I like that. Think like a proton and be positive. It came from a movie, so I have used it here as well. So peace begins with smile. So, if you can speak to people with a smile, and there are times, study shows that even when people are depressed and can't smile, doing this would help, like even biting a pen or a pencil, like that releases, your brain thinks you are smiling and releases hormones, that helps you find your calm. So, which is amazing, right? So there are times with my depressed clients, I do say, try to bite your pen or pencil. At least, every now and then it helps. So it kind of works, So next part is grief. We all have a bag of grief. We all it's something or other, so in reality, this is how we want to work through our grief, like a straight line. But this is in reality how it works. We go through that denial. No, it hasn't happened. Disbelief. No, it's not me, not my family. No, even with the trauma, people oh, whatever is she talking about? This is too shocking. No, I don't have any of these suppressed feelings, disbelief about that. And there are times, eventually, they learn, oh my goodness, I do have that. This is a problem. And you process it and you accept it. Then you go through this phase of depression, which is one way good, because there is some level of acceptance, which is inevitable for the next process. And then we go through this bargaining. If I do this, can I do that? If I did this, can I buy that? If at all I did this. So I have to say, I personally went especially losing my dad, 5 years ago. So, I did a lot of this bargaining. If at all I tried this, or maybe I should have done that. Every time I go through that grief phase, it doesn't stop. Well, reality, are we going to win there? No, because it happened in the past. Can you do anything about the past? No, it's done and dusted. What we got now is the present, right now. And we have to sometimes breathe and let go. And, once what happens, sometimes it doesn't work like that. So we keep getting into that anger phase and frustration. And it's and then that anger and frustration can be towards yourself, or sometimes it can be towards others. Others might cope it, sadly for my family, it can be, my family. So, and when we go through that cycle where we go through that phase of acceptance. We are there, and it's like a cycle. It keeps going. And this cycle of grief can move from in a day for a few hours, or it can be more for a few days, or sometimes it's just in a day, it can go 10 times, depends, how bad it is. So once we are able to accept whatever has happened and we get out of that grief response, yeah. So there are times we can't let go, and we learn, it's okay, let it be. That's how it is. It's a painful memory, and I accept as it is, and we acknowledge and we move on. So with our feelings, it's very interesting that it's like a very stubborn child. If all our feelings are so suppressed, like it's like a stubborn child. Unless it's acknowledged, it doesn't go away. So once you stop, acknowledge, and it goes away. So this is something 5 regrets of dying people, written by she top 5, and it was, I thought I'll add to this. I wish I had let myself be happier, one of them, like I wish I hadn't worked so hard, so it's pointless to have regrets later. So we only got today, do our best, and we work through that. So, and is it okay to cry? When you see people crying, let them cry their heart out. Don't tell them, don't cry, don't say that. Let them cry and let it out, because that's the natural way of healing. And tears are the silent language of grief. I absolutely love that. So, it needs to let it out and let them cry it out. So cyberbullying, I'm just leaving it there because, especially when we are, inside the house, most of us are on almost every social platform, including we are on a social platform right now with the Zoom. So, I thought it's a good resource to have. So, my dear loving younger brothers and sisters, please be careful. Be nice to your friends and family. And if you're going through any kind of cyberbullying, you need to let your family know, teachers know, so they can give you the right help. And, that's one major problem across board everywhere at the moment. So be careful that any information about yourself, it's very private, and what you share outside, once you put it out, it's out of your hands. So please be careful there. So I have left so many fun facts for you. So I thought it would be very interesting. So I'm being aware because of our time, and I just wanted to pick one out of the whole thing and to talk about a banana a day, keep the psychologist away. And my son says, Mom, you need to stop sharing that to everyone. You will, stop having clients. But it is true, because banana is loaded with a lot of nutrients in it. So, you have heard, an apple a day, keep the doctor away. So this is our thing. So, make sure you look after yourself. And so what's your self-care list you have? So we did go through a lot of things. So I'm putting a few in here. And if you want to add anything more, that would be really good. I think you already had a few classes about it. So remember, have fun too, on top of your studies. So I know the fun part is much limited because of the COVID, but still you can have lots of fun. You can have new hobbies, try new stuff. Like something about anxiety, I always say, just having a brain freeze here. I think I'll get back to that soon. Have a quick brain freeze. So when it comes to having, painful, we talked about trauma, which is heavy stuff, anxious feelings, the only way is through it. Sometimes it can be very scary, but, once you come out of it, that was the key. I want to say about the possum. There was a study so that Peter Levin is a key psychologist who works with the some somatization of the body, what happens in the body, and he was studying we are not any different from animals. So many things what animals do get them survive in the wild, but some things we do doesn't get us survive in the real world. I'm saying, for example, possum, when it's like a big rat, let's say. A possum, when it play dead, when it have a trigger, something's going to jump and attack it, let's say for a tiger. I'm just trying to be instead of keeping it boring. So let's say the tiger comes and attacks, the possum play dead. And if we try to do the same thing, we'll be dead for real. So that's that freeze response, and we can't stay there for too long. And when people go through that, it's very showing that they need treatment. With better help and treatment, we can go through this. So I have, there are times we need to know when to stop, survive. I'm still repeating what we said. Don't feed your fear. Instead, face it and embrace it if you can. Use a lot of touch, healing. Remember the 3 T's: time, touch, and touch, time, and talk. So when we have that, we are able to regulate ourselves better. So some studies tips were thought, well, you could be interested in that. So I just left it there for you. And we are nearly towards the end of the session. So, well, we go through that survival mode. We said we go through that acceptance mode, and then the growth mode happens, and we are able to better ourselves and reverse the spiral. So some ticks, if you can give yourself, how am I with all my skills? How can I improve myself there? And remember, hope is the key. So choose love, hope, and learn to accept. So this is me, and thank you so much for dear everyone. Oops.
Rita?
Thank you so much, Mom. That was really a great talk. You have enlightened our mind and shown a new path of living. After the wonderful session, it's our interaction time. Participants, please ask your doubts and questions on voice or drop it in the chat box. Please. Mom, there is a question. How to manage our compassion fatigue?
So with the compassion fatigue, it's, as I said, it's about going back to basics again, making sure you have that, keeping to your routine, to the normal as much as possible. If you need to, if it's excessive and you need to take time out, if you're really burned out, you're not going to give any good to anybody. So, you have to take time out from work if you need to. There is this study that came out saying, even if you go for a holiday, only after 4 days of your holiday, your brain stops from that work mode and switch to your able to be that normal self, So there is, like, people say as a joke, if you have forgotten your password, then you have had a good holiday. So, like, we are not any different. So it's about working through it. And there are times, even as a therapist, I go for supervision myself. I go for peer consultation. So those things do help. And understanding, like, as we said, like, we like, there are times, if we like that stop, revive, survive, watching with your thinking. If you're having, like, I had sessions where, like, with my compassion fatigue, I continued treating my clients even in my dreams, and I'm like, that was bad. That was really bad. So so there are times, like, with some people, if the burnout is extreme, then they may have to switch even the career. And I have to say that, like, I have come across some of my colleagues who have decided to cut down their hours from full-time work to 3 days work, so that it is more manageable, and they can have their leisure activities in between, that social support in between, and supervision going on board, and upskilling themselves. And there is a word called karoshi. You kill yourself by overworking. So in some ways, it is, that compassion fatigue, So there are times, like, when I work with the teachers, there are times I do feel their helplessness, because they start work, the teachers here, they start work from 8:30 to 3:30 ideally, but their work doesn't stop. They carry their work home, like our teachers do in India too. Like, their work doesn't stop. Like, even as therapists, our work doesn't stop. Even when the session finish, we do the homework, preparation, like background work, upskilling ourselves. Our work doesn't stop there. So there are times, the basic key is able to be present. When you're home, be home. When you're at work, be at work. When you eat, please eat. Like, especially I've got with my family, I know, like, especially the younger generation, they take the phone and go eat. That's not mindful eating, which doesn't help, So, like, it's the basic. It's being mindful and being in the moment, and it takes, like, that helps healing. I hope I answered the question.
Okay, ma'am. It looks like you have cleared the questions. The feedback form is provided in the chat box. Do ensure you fill the form clearly, stating all the required information. I call upon Alina Grace from first year BSc Psychology to propose the vote of thanks.
Am I audible?
Yes, Alina, you are.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Resource Person, Mrs. Sharon Steve, our beloved Principal Father Joshi Chiramkuri CMI, Vice Principal Varghese Anthony, Head of the Department Dr. Angel Thomas, respected teachers, and all my dear friends, a very good morning to one and all. It's my greatest honor and pleasure to be chosen to deliver the vote of thanks on this auspicious occasion. First and foremost, I thank God Almighty for giving us this opportunity to organize a webinar series despite the presence of COVID-19 pandemic. I express my sincere gratitude to our resource person, Mrs. Sharon Steve, for enlightening us with an informative webinar. The webinar was really an inspiring and motivating session. We got a great understanding on PTSD and traumas, and also on domestic violence, which is a major problem in today's societies. Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our principal, Father Joshi Chiramkuri CMI. Without his support and guidance, this webinar would not have been fruitful. Thank you, Father. I also thank our Vice Principal, Dr. Varghese Anthony, for his support and enlightenment. Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to HOD, Dr. Angel Thomas, and without her, this event could not have been a great success. Thank you, ma'am. Next, I would like to thank the coordinators of IQAC, Sushil Sir and Joint Coordinator Anu Ma'am, for making this event a success. Thank you. I also thank this opportunity to thank the coordinators of this webinar, Mr. Siju P. Jacob and Ms. Catherine Mariam Samuel, Assistant Professor KCMT, and all the other teachers of Psychology Department who have worked hard and to make this event a memorable one. Thank you, teachers. I also thank the technical team behind this webinar. Finally, I would like to thank my dear friends Ebita for the comparing, Agnes for the prayer song, and Sejasa for the welcome speech, and Aaron for introducing the resource person. Thank you one and all, and who have attended this webinar and who have made this event a great success. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alina. So we have come to the end of our webinar. On behalf of Kristajodi College of Management and Technology, I thank each and every one of you. We value you and your presence. Have a happy and safe weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Avita. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take away.